Dave Popkin, WBGO Studios. My guest today is a blues, jazz, and rock sideman who has played sax, flute, clarinet for an absolute who's who of music legends. He's also a band leader who has released several excellent jazz records over the last couple of years. He was a member of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He's perhaps best known as a card-carrying member of the Blues Brothers from its inception in the mid-70s to present, and also as a member of James Taylor's All-Star Band. It's my pleasure to welcome Blue Lou Marini to WBGO. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Dave. Pleasure.
We met recently at the ALS benefit at the Capitol Theater, and that was a great night. Blues Brothers were headlining. Those all-star concerts with a house band can kind of get squirrely sometimes, but I thought everybody landed the plane and had a good time, right?
Yeah, I thought it was really beautiful, and it was also lovely to see so many faces that I haven't seen in years for a lot of them, and the Average White Band sounded so good, and Fred Vigdor, the saxophone player, many years ago was a student of mine for a couple of years, so that was really lovely. And a funny thing too with the singer, I went to compliment him after the sound check, and he said, "Lou, you do remember that we played a gig together last year?" You know, I said, "Oops."
That happens. You've met just about everybody. It would be simpler to go through the list of people that you have not played with. I'm just going to mention a few just for fun for everybody. Aretha Franklin, Jay Giles Band, Aerosmith, Freddie Cole, Lou Reed, Peter Tosh, Dionne Warwick, Eric Clapton, Tony Bennett, the Rolling Stones, Frank Zappa. I mean, it goes on and on. Can you even believe that that's all possible?
It's sort of mind bending at this point, you know. I'm proud of it, but you know, it was they were always just gigs. We were doing gigs, you know, and so when I look back on it now, I've had the good fortune to get to play for so many people in so many different kind of situations, and I always like the challenge, especially soloing, of putting yourself in a situation that is not your normal genre and finding a way to honor that vibe and that groove and still personalize, express my own thing in it, you know, that the challenge of that, it doesn't always work. I've always loved that. And also, you know, the greatest thing about having reached this point in my career is just the sheer number of great musicians that I've played with, man. I have been so lucky. I've played with so many. I mean, I've always felt like I'm the low man on the totem pole with all these great players that I've played with over the years, you know. So that's been the real true delight of it all.
A couple of them were back with you in Port Chester. Your old buddy Tom Bones Malone was there, and Paul Schaefer, who some people forget was so important to the genesis of the Blues Brothers, putting that whole thing together. And he played as well that night. And can you tell us a little bit about your association with Paul, like with the Saturday Night Live band and Belushi and everybody back in the day?
Well, as soon as we met Paul on the Saturday Night Live show, you know, in those days he was wearing great big white glasses and he was a little presented himself in a little Elton Johnny kind of way, but it was immediately evident that he was a brilliant musician. He's got a recall. I've seen him do things like in the middle of a session, you know, tell one of the singers on some classic R&B tune that no, your background part goes like this. It's like he can hear everything in his head just on playback, and he can play. And also, he's a wonderful, funny cat, and you know, one of those guys who is just uh, he's in love with music and showbiz and the minutia and eccentricities of people and storytelling. And in fact, when he did Tramp with Carla Thomas, that was killing. And she, you know, there's an example. She's 83, still just killing it, man. Rock royalty, or well, R&B royalty, you know. That was great.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I had the honor of introducing Carla Thomas that night, and Paul came out and did Tramp with her, which I thought she would never cover because it's like a diss track, right? It's back and forth between originally her and Otis Redding, and Paul Schaefer came out and did the Otis Redding part, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, he nailed it.
He nailed it. He nailed it. Last couple of years, you've been recording a lot. I counted at least three albums last year that we'll talk about, and then one that's coming out next week with the Italian Groovers. I've heard a couple of the singles already, which precede the album Playtime. How did you get together with these paisans?
Well, years ago at Ronnie Scott's in London, the support band that played after the Blues Brothers played, we were there for like 3 or 4 nights, was really good. And I met the drummer. I sat in with him. He always says that I played "Here's That Rainy Day" at the slowest tempo he'd ever played in his life. But we connected, you know. And then a couple of years ago, 2 Februarys ago, he called me up and said, well, it was the tour was in February. He called me up in like November or December and asked me if I was interested in coming over. So when we rehearsed, uh, it's a trio where the pianist, Gianluca Dieno is his name. He's brilliant. Is playing bass with his left hand and playing the rest with his right. And there's a wonderful guitar player uh, named Alessandro Chiappetta. Fantastic guitarist. When we rehearsed, I had sent my music prior. After about the second tune, I said, you know, I think we could have just gone in and played the gig because they had it so together. And I assumed that they had been playing together forever. But it turned out that I found out a year later that that was the first time they had ever met or played together, the guitarist and the pianist. So the drummer's name is Enzo Zarilli, and he's a wonderful drummer. He's played with everybody. He's constantly traveling around Europe playing with all kinds of pianists and other bands. So this was our fifth little tour. We did 10 concerts. I got back 2 weeks ago. I was in Italy for 17 days. And really fun, man, getting to play my music in intimate settings, clubs where we play, you know, one place was just 80 people, the others were 150, 200. So it's been a delight. Jazz money, but but man, it's so fun to blow like that, and they're killing it. You know, they just sound so great.
Now, you're Italian by heritage, but born in Charleston and raised in Ohio. I know you've been going back to Italy more as you get older, correct? Or do you like spending a lot of time back in the homeland?
I think the first time that I was in Italy was 1972 with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, or 1971. So I knew that I had relatives in the north, but my dad had never gone back. Only my Uncle Frank, my oldest, his older brother, had gone back to Italy. But it took, and then I played many, many times in Italy, all over Italy with different bands. But it wasn't until I think 2000 or 1999 that I was playing in Rimini, and I had a day off, and I drove up to Trentino, where my family is from, and it's been one of those things that is a super beautiful part of my life now. And my wife is Spanish, and she used to work when she was younger on the Costa Cruise lines when she was in university. So she speaks fluent Italian. So, you know, I finish a gig and they come up to me and they say, "Lou, fantastic! I love your playing, but Lou, your wife, Carmen, she's so fantastic." So she's a big calling card for me. But we spend a lot of time in Spain too, and I'm playing with three different bands, three different Spanish bands, and I've been playing with them for a while. In fact, the guitar player in one of them now plays with the Blues Brothers band. His name is Francisco Simon. He's a killer. So I'm having fun, man. I'm being able to spend time in Italy and see my family, and my other family in Spain. You know, so it's a delight, really.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about the 2025 records. I'd love them. Listen to them recently. Point of View with Stephen Feifke, if I'm pronouncing that
Yeah.
correct. Out of the Blue with your own band, and We Like to Groove, which was great with Luis Coloma and some other musicians. These are basically jazz records. Has that always been a big love and kind of something that you wanted to get to put this stuff on record?
Well, you know, somehow I never had the. For one thing, I was always working. I was always busy in one band or another. So, you know, I had some. I played Tom Pearson, the pianist and brilliant composer, had a band when I first came to New York called Turning Point with George Mraz, and Buddy Williams played drums in that band, and that's where I first met Buddy. And uh, Benny Aronoff, a wonderful jazz pianist. There were two keyboards with Tom. Extremely challenging avant-garde jazz music, and at the same time, I was playing a lot with Dr. John, and and then I had a band called Band Together with Lou Soloff and Larry Willis, Buddy Williams, and Tom Barney. And for a period of about 3 years, we played a lot in New York, and that was a stone jazz band, you know. So, I mean, I've always thought of myself as a jazz player, but I've been in these other situations. You know, I like all kinds of music, man. You know, as long as it's grooving and played beautifully. I listen to more classical music now than I do jazz, actually. But you know, it goes back and forth. I'll get on a jag of listening to. I mean, Duke Ellington. Anytime you put on a Duke Ellington record, it's just like he has to be considered one of the great composers of all time. You know, period, in whatever genre you. And to have a band like that is your personal instrument, to have them play what you want. Wow, just I heard them one time in Chicago. It was Duke with a small band in a place called the Black Hawk, I think, and Cootie Williams played us. Duke said we're going to start it off with a little swamp goo, and Cootie Williams played a solo, and I thought to myself, if you removed the background from this, you would think he was an avant-garde player. It was out, you know, and in, but just mind-bending, man. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm a jazzer at heart, that's for sure.
Duke was best in class, and another guy that was best in class, you just mentioned Dr. John, one of my favorites. I'm just curious, like, what was he like to be around? Was he always like in character, or how much of it was artifice? How
No,
much of it was just like,
no,
that's who he was.
he's that's who he was. His delight in playing with words. For instance, you know, the first time we played together on Levon Helm's RCO All Stars band. That's when I first met him. And then shortly after we recorded, he called me for a gig to play with his small band, and he called. I still remember that. Louis, it's Mac. I got a little gig for you. The money's funny. The change is strange. You know, that was the first time I played with him. One time, I found out he was playing in Miami, and I was on vacation in Key Largo. So I drove into Miami. This is like in the late '80s. No GPS, no nothing. I don't know where I'm going. I just know the name of the theater. I hit the coast road, luckily, that the theater was on, and I made a left, and the next thing you know, there's the theater. I blundered right into it. As I pulled up, a car pulled out, and I had a parking place right in front of the stage door. So I got out with my soprano saxophone, which I had carried with me, and the guy in the stage door opens up the door. I walk in. It's like 8:05 or something. The gig's supposed to start at 8. Mac looks at me and he said, Louis, get your horn out. What are you doing? We got to play. Let's go. Let's go. I wasn't on the gig. I played the whole gig, you know. No, he was fantastic, man. There's a new record out that came out in March, I think, or maybe before, live at the Village Gate, and it was a gig. It's me and Ronnie Cuber and Lou Soloff, Wilbur Bascom on bass, Richie Crooks on drums, and Mac, and it's killer. It's really good, and Mac sounds fantastic, man.
Can't wait to hear that for sure. Um, let's go back to the beginning. I know your dad was a teacher and a musician at your high school, right? How much was that a formative experience, and how much of a hands-on teacher was he with you?
He started me, but you know, I was in a musical environment all the time from the time I was a little kid, always I have a big scar on my hand from they used to have me put on the 78 records, and I fell off a stool and hit the cord, and the record player came off, and the records broke, and I fell into them old 78s, you know. But so I was always around music, and he loved big bands, of course, and he started me when I was 10 on clarinet, and I'm still playing the same clarinet. He bought me a top of the line buffet, and I've been playing that thing. Wow. But anyway, so as soon as he saw that I was interested and that I had some talent and was into it, then he had me study with one of his best friends, who was a wonderful natural jazz player named Frank Corby. And he was also a high school band director in Ohio. So once a week, we would drive over after school, and I would take a lesson from Frank. And, uh, my dad wrote so much music, man. I have his big band book back around 2000, I think, or a little later maybe. I put together an all-star band here in New York, flew my dad up for his 80th birthday, and we played and recorded 11 of his big band charts at NOLA. Cranshaw played bass, John Tropez, Lee Musiker on piano, Ronnie Zito on drums, Bob Milliken, Lawrence Feldman played, Bob Malik played, all kinds of cats played, you know. It was a fantastic day. And I realized I have his book. There's like 280 charts in it. It's amazing, you know. He wrote so much music in his life, arranged. And during the years he taught at Bowling Green University, they said he wrote like 250 arrangements for the marching band. So he was a tremendous musician and a great, great teacher. And he, I went to the Stan Kenton camps when I was a kid. So Dave Sanborn was my roommate. Uh, Keith Jarrett was there. Randy Brecker was there. Don Grolnick. A bunch of other. Peter Erskine is a 7-year-old precocious little drummer, you know. And through those connections, like at that clinic, I heard Don Jacoby, a great old trumpet player. Well, he was in his 40s then, give a clinic. And I thought, and still think it was one of the greatest clinics I ever heard. So I was 14 or 15. I go to, and the North Texas State University Band was in residence. So I heard that band, and could have gone to Berkeley or to North Texas, and I gravitated toward North Texas. And the end of my freshman year, I got a phone call from the saxophone player in the number one band. I was playing in the number two band then, and he had been in a car crash. He needed me to sub for him, and it was with Don Jacoby. And the other horn player was Bobby Butter Burgess, who had been Maynard Ferguson's, Stan Kenton's, Woody Herman's, Louis Jordan's first trombone player. So for the next 3 years, 6 nights a week, I'm standing between these two guys, playing ensembles and playing a new act every 2 weeks, and blowing with a great sextet in Dallas at the same time that I'm playing in the 1 o'clock band. And so, man, when I think about it, and those, all these little connections, like Doc Severinsen used to come down to Texas because he had horses. And he would come on the weekends and a lot of times would play gigs with the big band. So I was on those gigs. And then right when I decided to move to New York, I'd gotten divorced painfully. And I think I had like $600 to my name, and I'm moving to New York. I get a call from Doc. He's fired his one of his alto player on his traveling band, and do I want to play in that band? So the first gig was in Kansas City. Lou Tabakin was the other tenor player, was the other saxophone player. Lou says, "You're moving to New York. Do you need a place?" I just married Toshiko, and I'm subletting my apartment. So I came with a gig and a pad, and 3 months later I joined Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So these connections, it's amazing how it works, but there's been these doors that magically open, and I stepped through them.
Or to explain it, and I guess They're right. 85% of life is showing up, right? Being in the right place at the right time. So, I mean, blood, sweat, and tears, and then right into the Saturday Night Live band. First year?
Yeah, I didn't play the first couple of shows. Uh, there was a problem with the original tenor player. I think it was more of a personality problem. But there were auditions, and somehow I just felt like it was my gig, and it turned out to be. And those years were fun too because we were always playing with the musical acts. Now they don't play. The band hardly ever plays with the musical guests, but in those days we were playing with everybody, and it was electric, and we weren't really aware, I don't think, of how important the show was or how important it turned out to be. I mean, we knew it was everybody was tuning in on Saturday night, but but we were having fun playing, and that was a great band. Alan Rubin, I still think he's the single greatest horn player I ever played with, just as far as command of the instrument and musicality, wonderful sound, perfect time, always in tune. He used to kid me. Is that where you're putting it? Okay, don't worry, we'll come to you, he would say. No, those years were fantastic, and that band was so great, man. The series of bands during those, I played the first 8 years. That was a singular experience. I look back on it very fondly. Also, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. When I left Blood, Sweat, and Tears, there had been a lot of internal conflict, and I was getting agita, and so I quit. And for years, I had sort of negative feelings about the band. And then one night, Soloff called me up and said, "I'm in the neighborhood. I got a couple of things you got to listen to." And he had some video cassettes of live gigs of the band, and wow, man, it was full out. We were we were taking no prisoners. I really loved it. It was going for it big time, and it really sounded great. And Larry Willis and I were lifelong close friends after that. He used to call. I forget. Oh, I remember how it happened. There was a Blood, Sweat, and Tears cover of us in a shower room or a spa, and we start off in tuxedos and we end up in towels. And my dad had retired to North Carolina, and some traveling salesman came, and he saw the album, and he says, "Oh, I'm a big Blood, Sweat, and Tears fan." Well, in those days, my dad was playing golf every day, and with his Italian heritage, he was deeply tanned. So my dad says, "Well, my son played in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You see if you can pick him out." And he picked out Larry Willis. So, so when I told Larry about it, we started calling Larry the black sheep of the family, and from then on, Larry called my mom and dad, and he used to call them every month or so just to check in on him, make sure they were cool. Beautiful.
Some people are just mensches like that. And let's talk about Blues Brothers. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that a little bit. One of my favorite acts of all time, the most successful blues review act of all time. I think it's over 11 million records sold. Briefcase, over 3 million. The movie soundtrack, over 3 million copies sold. It was like zeitgeist, right? It was like everything came together and you guys were super popular. Like when the movie hit and everybody knew who you were, right? You were in the movie, you were on stage with those guys. When that hit, what was it like for you?
Well, in those days we were still busy in the recording studios, so my life didn't change that much, except that we started traveling with the Blues Brothers band. We only did a couple tours because of Belushi's premature death, but ever since I I've said this many, many times, but I'll say it again. The Blues Brothers has been the world's greatest part-time gig because we're not able to play that often and ever diminishing over the years. We're going out again this summer for a couple of weeks from the 10th to the 20th in Europe. We'll play in Serbia and Finland and Italy. Uh, but we've played all over the world, uh, and the audience is so devoted, man. And the band is still burning. And I still get recognized, but I always joke because it's always guys, and it's always like cops or firemen or postmen or construction workers, and it's all, hey, Blue, how you doing, man? Yeah, Blue. One time I had sublet an apartment in New York. I got divorced a second time, and I was practicing, and I smelled smoke. And I went to my bedroom, and smoke was billowing up under so I yelled fire, ran down I was on the second floor. Then I see my windows being broke out. I'm thinking my horns, my alto flute, $20,000 instrument is out. And two firemen come out, and they're all covered with water and smoke, and they pull off their masks, and they look up at me. I'm standing outside the building, and the guy goes, Blue Lou? Blue Lou, hey, Charlie, Blue Lou. And the next thing you know, I'm on the fire truck. I'm saying hello to this guy and this guy, totally, totally bizarre. But it's always been people who actually really love the music. It's not like that stupid kind of fandom that is an affliction that I could see with Belushi. People would see Belushi and they'd lose their papers. They'd just go crazy. And so it's never been like that. It's been lovely, really, and that the band was coming from so many different places, and there was a lot of there was friction. Uh, I tell a story about Alan and Steve Cropper, and Steve and Alan just didn't get each other's sense of humor. Alan's New York Jewish and Steve's Memphis stuff. They would miss it. Steve would fire off a 4 and Alan would reply with a 7, or vice versa. And so one night we went out to dinner. Alan set us up to go to, it was a high-end Italian restaurant at the time. It's no longer around, called Centani on the Upper East Side. And so I was there early, and Alan shows up, and he's wearing a blue blazer with gold buttons and a blue shirt with a regimental tie and gray flannel slacks and penny loafers, that. And Cropper walks in 5 minutes later, and he's wearing exactly the same thing. I couldn't stop laughing, man. I said, "You guys are always like on each other, and you're basically the same." Yeah, it was the Blues Brothers was a trip. It was a trip, and I'll tell you, man. When I listen to it now, uh, like Briefcase Full of Blues, man, the band is it's smoking. And our horn section was killing, man. That was a killing horn section. It's razor sharp. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, but we got terrible reviews when it came out. It was panned. And also the first weekend, which they had counted on to be a big opening weekend, there was a tremendous rainstorm in LA and tons of rain here in New York too. So the two biggest markets were a big flop as far as they were concerned. Yeah.
It still sounds fresh and the best in class, like the best that I've heard. It's awesome. Now, what were the intervening years like? I mean, you're busy in the studio every day, right? You're playing with all these people, with the Stones, with Stevie, with Luther Vandross, with Ringo, with all these people. But the band has to go their own ways after John dies. How long does it take to kind of get it back together and say we can continue in some fashion?
It was triggered by Danny Aykroyd's wife, Donna Dixon, getting us all together for a surprise birthday party in Kingston, Ontario. We hid in the garage with all our equipment, and he thought he was getting a new car, and the door opened. We played bam, ba bam, bam, and so that was the first time that we had been together since Belushi died, and I don't think any of us thought that we were going to play again. It was just something that happened. I mean, the whole thing was like a rocket ship anyway. It just 2 or 3 years, and it flashed, and then it was gone. And then shortly after that, Matt Murphy, who had been touring Europe with his quintet, got an inquiry about from promoters there about could the Blues Brothers band come over and play some gigs, and we went over in March. I'm not sure if it was '87 or '88, but we played like five or six concerts in Italy, and it was a big success. And the
With Jim
following,
Belushi or somebody else?
no, it was with Eddie Floyd and Matt Singer, a great singer from St. Louis named Larry Thurston, and but Duck and Steve, Matt, Alan, and I, and so that next summer we played. I think we played Montreux Jazz Festival. We played Pori Jazz. We played North Sea Jazz. We were in Europe for like 6 weeks, and we've been touring ever since. So just that, and because of the nature of the band, because of this cult nature of the band, if we were like Steely Dan or James, where you need a big stage setup, you need trucks, you need, but it's 12 of us, and we're carrying our horns and we play. There's no there's no scenario. There's nothing. We're like a band of gypsies, and so because of that, one night you play at the Piazza del Duomo in Milan for 16,000 people, and the next night you play in a club in Switzerland for 300. Or you're in the south of France at some village that's like a three-county festival, and they take you to the mayor's, to the town hall, and there's the local wine and the local cheese and the local bread, and I mean, we've had experiences because of the Blues Brothers band that are just they're irreplaceable. To this day, Lee Finkelstein, our drummer, has been with us for over 20 years now, and again the other night at the benefit, I looked at him. We exchanged this look, and it's like, here we are again, man. We get to do it one more time. Yeah, it's been really beautiful.
What a gift. And the other is James Taylor's band that we talked about a bit earlier, but going back on the road, and from what I can see, April through September. I mean, that's pretty ambitious for James in that group, and what an opportunity that's been for you. Great.
Yeah. Well, actually, we finished May 11th. On the 13th, I leave to go play 4 gigs in Italy with the boys, and then to Spain to play 3 with the Spaniards, and then come back and we start with James. And when we finish with James, the Blues Brothers are playing from the 10th to the 20th of August, but I'm playing 4 gigs with the Spanish guys at the end of July, and then 4 gigs with the Italians in the beginning of August, and then the Blues Brothers from the 10th to the 20th, and then start with James again on the 29th. So I'm I'm hitting, man. But James, I told James when we finished the last tour, I said, this is 25 years for me. This is getting to be Ellingtonian. The same band basically for the last 23 years. This will be my 26th year now. And Jimmy Johnson and Kate Markowitz, they've been with him longer. Mike Landau, too. Something else.
It's remarkable, and I'm a big Springsteen fan, and he's had so much continuity with that band. They call Nils Lofgren the new guy. He's been in the band for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that says something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate all the time. I wish you luck with a new record, Playtime, coming out in late April. Lou Marini and the Italian Groovers. We direct people to all those great jazz records that came out last year. Point of View, Out of the Blue, and We Like to Groove. All this stuff keeps you young, man. Keep going.
Thank you, brother.
All right. That's the
Pleasure.
great Blue Lou Marini. Truly one of the good old boys joining us here on
Well, the
WBGO.
old part is right.